And we are back with another episode of Book Club Fridays. And listen, this one is for you, my smut loving girlies, because we are going to go down a list of my favorite romance novels that I have read in the last year. So if you are into spicy reads, emotional arcs, and hot fictional men who would absolutely ruin your life in the best way, this episode is for you. Today, I am going to be sharing my personal faves, and the list is very long, so I've had to narrow it down pretty significantly. But you are going to want to open your TBR, pull out a pen and a piece of paper, and jot some of these down, because if you have not read them, I promise you, you will want to. Before we get into my recommendations, let's start with a quick list of my auto-buy authors, because I feel like this can just give you a feel for what my vibe is, and what my vibe is may not be your vibe, and that is perfectly okay. Just wait until next week when another Share Your Story episode will be back. But if you are just like me, because I am not ashamed to admit it, that Book Talk and Bookstagram have completely influenced my book collection and ultimately changed my life, as well as drained my bank account significantly over the last couple years. But who's keeping track? Not me, thank God. So let's start strong. Miss Elsie Silver, the queen of Western romance herself. This woman can write banter and spice and ultimate family dynamics, literally whole package in all of her books. I will say in all of her books, but very significantly in her two most recent series. We have tropes for days, and again, the ultimate MMCs, which MMC means male main character. Female MC is FMC, in case anybody is not familiar with the Book Talk, Bookstagram lingo. I myself am still learning and find myself Googling shit on a regular basis. So, no judgment here. But my favorites that Elsie Silver has written, the first one that came to my mind came from the Chestnut Spring series, which is the second series that she wrote. And it is the book Reckless. And this is not, I don't necessarily think that this is a fan favorite of like top of the list, but it was also kind of in a tie with my latest read of hers, which was Wild Side in the Rose Hill series. So I don't know. It's so hard to decide. But I'm going to stick with Reckless. I'm going to stick with Reckless because this book just pulled me in. It had a unique dynamic. It had a little bit of miscommunication that annoyed me, but the characters were just so good. Theo, the MMC, had that golden retriever energy, but like with a little bit of an edge. Him being a bull rider, him being young, but just this magnetism that pulled people in. You wanted to root for him. You wanted to love him. Even if he had this reputation of being a playboy, he really showed up in this story as a man. And that was just such a turn on to me. I'm not going to lie. Winter, the female main character, through her entire arc, like through this series, when you first meet her in the first book, I mean, she is very much an ice queen. She is very cold and standoffish, and for good reason. When you get to experience her arc from the beginning to her book, Reckless, it was just like the ultimate chef's kiss. Theo knew how to break down her walls, if you know what I mean. But they had such a cool opposites attract, the way that she was able to learn how to let down her guard and let love in multiple different ways within family dynamics, within this romantic relationship, and in just how she began to come into her own and stand up for herself. So, yeah, I gave it a 5 star. I highly recommend checking out this entire series because I powered through the entire thing, absolutely devoured it. I loved it. It is still one of my favorites, sitting on my bookshelf right behind me. Yeah, it's where I fell in love with Elsie Silver. This was the first series that I had read by her, and it's been super popular, but highly recommend. Absolutely loved Reckless. The tropes in the book were one night stand, he falls first, accidental pregnancy, spoiler alert, grumpy sunshine, and they were just so fun. All of them were so fun. I loved the dynamic between those two. So, Reckless, that's my recommendation. But Elsie Silver, always auto buy. I literally pre order everything that she writes. So, longtime fan and cannot wait to see what else she comes out with. I will say, though, side note, not every Elsie Silver book has been a 5 star read for me. I read her Gold Rush Ranch series after the Chestnut Spring series, and it's not necessarily a prequel, but it was written first. And I could tell that it was a debut series. I could tell it was a debut series. And that's okay. It was still really good, but all of the books in that series, I think there was 4, they were only around 3.75 to 4 stars for me, which probably is also like people are like, "Oh, that's high." My scale of rating, as you will learn, if I give a book a 2 star, like I probably did not finish it, because as a writer myself, I know what it takes to put your heart and soul into characters, into a storyline, and the time and the energy. And so, yeah, anything less, like you get at least 2 stars for writing a freaking book for me. And if it's a 2 star, I probably didn't finish it, or I really just didn't like it. So my lowest ratings, my lower end ratings, are gonna be like for books I really, really did not like. Whereas a 3.75, anywhere from like 3 to 4, that's gonna be kind of like meh, I could do without kind of thing. I read once, I'll probably never read again. If you're hitting that 5 star mark, you're gonna sit on my bookshelf forever, and I will reread you most definitely, and tell everybody that I know that loves contemporary romance to read you. So, I digress. But every series that I read by this woman gets better and better. All right, Elsie Silver, run out, grab some of her books if you have not already. Next, we have someone that I just started reading books by last year, and that is Miss Devney Perry. And my God, she has the most incredible name. Devney, that's like just beautiful, beautiful. Absolutely love her name. But she writes really good small town romance, and I fell hard for her with the Eden series. It was my favorite series, my favorite books that I read last year. And she did just release a fantasy book called Shield of Sparrows, and it is in my Barnes and Noble cart waiting for payday. I am so excited to read it. My best friend tells me all the time that I need to jump into the fantasy world, and I just haven't done it yet. But for Devney, I absolutely will. So that will probably be my first little toe dip into the fantasy world. The last fantasy book I probably read was Twilight. I mean, that's considered fantasy, right? I mean, I don't know. Once the movies came out, I stopped reading the books. So, back to the Eden series. This is a series of 6 books. It is complete. They are all based on siblings from the Eden family. They live in Quincy, Montana. each of them gets their own unique love story. There is so much warmth around these family dynamics, but also like growth and tension and some mystery. In the first, fifth, and sixth books, there's definitely a mystery element to the books that I wasn't expecting, but was super intriguing. It's why I picked up the first one to begin with, because I just needed something to kind of get me out of a slump. And it kept me in the romance genre, but also gave me something else beyond that in the storyline to get invested in and look forward to. So it was also super easy to read. And I love the way that she writes smut. I'm a really big fan. It's not overdone. It's not like cringy, because some of it can be cringy. Let's be honest. Some of it can be cringy. I should do an entire episode of like the cringe words that I just skim past, because I can't. Sometimes I just can't. So, all of these storylines had very interesting dynamics, and everything was very, very different. My personal favorite was Sable Peak, and that is the last book, which doesn't normally happen very often. I feel like a lot of times when I read a series, the last book, I'm like, okay, like let's wrap it up. I'm ready to be done. Nice little chef's kiss on the end. See you later. The last book was my absolute favorite. And I think I read it in one day. And that book is about Mateo Eden and Vera Gallagher. And their story was just everything. It was emotional and layered and spicy, but also they both had some trauma to navigate through, or just like unexpected life challenges. I do not want to give too much away, but it really just pulled me in, and I absolutely loved it. There is this one scene where Vera forces him to notice her in the middle of a bar. Absolutely iconic. I was like mouth open, jaw dropped when I read it. So, highly recommend. The tropes in this book are single dad, age gap, but not like a creepy age gap. Sometimes when it's like, I mean, I'm all for an age gap. I've experienced age gap in my real life. But when you've got like 19-year-old characters with like 40-year-old men, I don't know. That starts to push it a little bit for me. And maybe that's because like I have a teenager. So thinking about that in real time, like only a few years away, it's like, that feels weird. That feels weird. So, anyways, age gap, small town. She falls first, but he falls harder. So, again, 5-star, highly recommend. Last auto by author that we're going to talk about today is Lucy Score. And this woman is the queen of banter and bold heroines. She can write anything. Anything. I read any of her books and I'm just like, man, solid. Even if they're not my favorite, just solid storylines. And she's got so many books. Out of these 3 authors, she definitely has been at this the longest, and just series after series after series. And so it's so impressive to me that she's been in this industry for so long. It's so exciting to me that she really, I feel like, has blown up all over social media. I think it's cool to see these authors get to redistribute old stories that they wrote. I also love that they redo all the covers, because I hate nothing more than reading a book that's got a half naked man on the cover. So I am all for these new discreet covers. Will I look at the insert if they have those included, like an insert of a photograph? Sure. But yeah, if I'm sitting in the living room with my kids, I would rather not have abs of steel on the cover of my book for my children to judge me or ask too many questions. But my favorite series that she wrote was the Knock Me Out series. And that is 3 books: Things We Never Got Over, Things We Hide from the Light, and Things We Left Behind. I also really loved the standalones Forever Never, even though the sex scenes in that book were really long. really great book, really love the storyline, but that was one that I found myself in the sex scenes where I was like, can we wrap it up, kids? And then By a Thread, loved that one. So good. So good. In the last year, though, those are all ones that I've read like a couple years ago. In the last year, I've read the Riley Thorne series, which I've only read the first two. I've read the first two. The Dead Guy Next Door and The Corpse in the Closet, I think. Was it the second one? Or is it The Body in the Backyard? Oh gosh. I might have screwed it up. I don't know. It's one of those. The first two are the first two that I read. There's too many books. There's too many titles. I can't keep up. But anyways, these books are quirky, funny, refreshing. The side characters are just hilarious, and all the different dynamics just keep you really engaged and interested. It is a nice little break from your normal romance tropes, and Riley is a psychic medium, and she's in denial until she literally has a vision of a murder that drops her into the middle of an investigation, and of course sparks a little romance between her and the PI that's hired. So yeah, things get a little steamy, things get super funny, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? But also really fun. I remember like laughing out loud multiple times while I was reading, especially the first one, especially the first book. I rated them 4 stars, and I do plan on finishing the series. So if you need a little psychic mediumship, clairvoyant reads in your life, jump over to the Riley Thorne series. And if you have never read a Lucy Score book, please go read the Knock Me Out series, because incredible. And I also believe it's getting turned into a movie or a TV show. I don't know. I keep seeing all of this stuff online about all of these books getting made into movies or TV shows, and nothing's happening. So I'm not getting my hopes up, but yet I am. All right. Let's get down to some must-reads from the last year. And we are going to start with Miss Elsie Silver's Rose Hill series. And that consists of Wild Love, Wild Eyes, Wild Side, and yes, Wild Card that is on pre-order for this fall. The slow burn, the angst, the dialogue, like I said, she writes it so well and so beautifully that every time I start reading one of her books, I literally cannot put them down. It's one of those that I'm like, I can't wait to get to bed tonight to start reading. And when I read her dialogue, it kills me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I would say something like that. Or I will be like, oh, I'm going to tuck that one in my back pocket and save it for a rainy day, pull it out in a nice conversation, because it's pure gold. It's witty, it's funny, and it's so entertaining. My top pick so far from this series, I really think I'm going to go with Wild Side. Maybe it's because it's the one that I read most recently, but I just love the tension. The tension between these two and their banter and bickering is so good. It's so good. But it also includes elements of grief, and there's a shared custody storyline that was just very beautifully written. But I'm not going to give too much away, because you need to go and you need to read or listen, if audiobooks are your thing, listen to this book. It was just very emotionally loaded and very beautiful. Very beautiful. Her characters and her stories also always have interesting dynamics, and I feel like no storyline ever feels the same. Sometimes you can feel like authors can write the same kind of characters or the same kind of storylines over and over again, just kind of in a different wrapping, I guess. And she definitely, I feel like, doesn't do that. I feel like she's got a lot of she makes her characters and their storylines extremely unique. So, yes. I also love how all of her series cross over in some way. There's a character crossover or a family dynamic crossover, and that's always fun because who doesn't love a good Easter egg? And she doesn't take it too far. I have read a few series that I feel like the Easter eggs get a little crazy, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to remember who this person is and how they would be connected or why they would come into this storyline and play this factor. I get a little confused with that sometimes, and she definitely does not overdo the crossover. So I appreciate that. Like I said, love her smut scenes, love her slow burn, love her angst. And again, it's not overdone because, like I said, sometimes you just gotta wrap it up. Wrap it up. All right, moving along. We are going to talk about the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. And this series is now officially complete. Wild and Wrangled just came out. It's literally on its way from Barnes & Noble to my house, and I can't wait to read it. This is once again a Western romance, 4 books, each centered around siblings. It takes place on their family ranch, hence the title, duh. The first book, Done and Dusted, is Brothers Best Friends trope, Swift and Saddled, Golden Retriever, Black Cat, Lost and Lassoed, Enemies to Lover, and Wild and Wrangled, Second Chance Romance. So we are checking all the boxes here, friends. Like I said, I have not read Wild and Wrangled yet, but it is on my TBR. These books, what I loved the most about them was they're so easy to read. So easy to read. I think I read all of them themselves within a day or two. Like, it did not take me long to get through any of those. And sometimes I just love that when I'm at the end of the day crawling into bed to read a book and I just want to turn my brain off and be entertained and enjoy something. Go to. Absolute perfect. And that is exactly what these books gave me. And honestly, I absolutely loved the female friendship between Teddy and Emmy. And all four of the girls, Cam and Ida, but Teddy and Emmy's friendship, that was super fun to see evolve through each of their books. I'm really drawn in when female friendships are depicted realistically throughout a story in a really strong way, because the female friendships in my life, the women in my life, I mean, they are literally the loves of my life. They are my soulmates. And I would be absolutely lost without each and every one of them. They have given me this family dynamic in my life that I treasure and cherish and am so grateful for. I literally cannot put it into words. So, ladies, if you're listening, I love you and you know who you are. And if there are friendships written like that in a book, then yeah, I just love it. Fall in love with it. My least favorite in this series was Done and Dusted, the first one. I don't know why. It just took me a while to get into. It got a 3.75 star from me, but the others all straight up 5 stars. So head on over to Rebel Blue Ranch. I also heard this one was getting turned into a TV series. But again, I haven't seen anything. Nothing has been confirmed. So I'm not completely sold on it. You never know. All right. The last series that I'm going to talk about is the Boys of Tommen series by Chloe Walsh. And when I tell you that these books wrecked me, they absolutely shattered my heart to pieces. These books are set in Ireland. They follow a group of teenagers. Young adult is not normally my go-to, but I kept seeing these books all over Instagram. And finally I was like, all right, I'm going to buy the first one and just see if I like it. It took me a while to get into, but once I did, and the fact that they leave you on a cliffhanger, I was just like, give them all to me. Give them all to me. I must read them. I must know what happens. Because this group of teenagers navigates trauma, love, growth. They are very long and they are extremely detailed, which I love most of the time. There were moments where I was like, all right, let's like hurry this shit up. I feel like we could have gotten through some of the chapters, maybe cut a little out in a couple of the books. But again, all in all, nothing is perfect. And I love Chloe Walsh's writing style. I love that it is set in like Ireland, so it gives us this different dynamic. Yeah, they're not light reads by any means, but they are so worth it. The first two books, Binding 13 and Keeping 13, are about Shannon and Johnny. The next two, Saving 6 and Redeeming 6, are about Joey and Aoife. And then Taming 7 is about Gypsy and Claire. Now, Releasing 10 comes out in May. So far, there had been 2 books for each couple. But now we've only had one Gypsy and Claire book, and then Huey and Lizzie's book is coming out. So there is a lot of speculation on Book Talk that Gypsy and Claire's second book will come out after, and then Huey and Lizzie's book will come out after that. I have no idea, but I really hope that that is the case. I will say the first 4 book storylines are immersed heavily in Shannon and Joey's family dynamic. They are siblings, brother and sister, and they live in a house with a very avoidant mother. She is literally frozen in victimhood by their abusive alcoholic father. And so there is a lot of trauma. There is domestic violence, there is childhood abuse, emotional neglect, lots of trauma. And so at times that felt hard to read. Also, I'm an empath, so I had to take some of those parts really slow, but it was really brutally beautiful to witness each of their character arcs, how they dealt and navigated with the trauma that they were dealing with in their family dynamic, in their social lives, and with addictions or avoidance, anxiety, depression. So, like I said, major trigger warnings for this entire series, but it is really beautiful to see how these characters evolved and then found love even through all of this tragedy that they experienced. Through the first 4 books, you get introduced to Gypsy and Claire, and I expected their story to be a little bit more lighthearted. Wrong. False. Absolutely not. Because both of these characters are like literal sunshine, just very happy-go-lucky people. But also it was a representation of how sometimes those people express that on the outside are really dealing with extremely hard trauma on the inside. So very complex, other elements of trauma, but again, just really well written. And I'm excited to see where their story goes. Joey and Aoife's books definitely had the most spice. And in the end, their books were my favorite. I just really resonated with Aoife's character and her personality. So, absolutely loved that series. Like I said, I'm not usually a young adult girly, but the emotional depth and character growth really just kept me locked in. I will say this again. Trigger warnings are a must for this series. So look them up before you read it, before you buy it. But if you're good with heavier themes, I highly recommend. Highly recommend. All right, now we are going to talk about some books that just didn't hit it for me. They were a miss. First one is The Inmate by Frida McFadden. And I hate to put this book on my not list because I was in it in the beginning. I was invested. I was like, all right, cool. It was Scorpio season. I'm like, give me a little mystery. Everybody loves Frida McFadden. Super easy to read, well written. But then I got to like 75% through the book. And without giving too much away, this female main character is like a fucking doctor or something. But I think the most naive woman I have ever met in my life. And it just pissed me off. I was like, no, you cannot possibly be that stupid. You can't. There's no way. Why? 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 And if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, I don't know, maybe you should read it so then we can discuss it because I was literally just like, what the? Yeah. So hit 75% through, and I was just like, okay, I got to finish it, but also, no, absolutely not. Anyways, the second miss for me that I read in the last year was The Long Game by Elena Armas. And I loved The Spanish Love Deception and The American Roommate Experiment. So was so excited to pick this book up, even though it did sit on my TBR forever. It sat on my TBR forever. And now I know why, because I struggled. I struggled to get through it. I almost didn't finish it. But the OCD that lives inside my brain forced me to. But I was just kind of bored and uninvested in the characters. So, yeah, that one, not super great. Not super great for me. But if you loved it, hey, good for you. And then third is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey, which again, I was super disappointed because I've loved so many of the books of hers that I have read. But this one was just a miss. There was too much miscommunication, like way too much. And then I just felt kind of bored. I felt kind of bored by it. So I'm going to let you guys do your research on those three books. I didn't give you a whole lot of information on the stories. This was just more for like conversation piece. But I'm going to let you do your research and look up what these books are about. And then you'll understand maybe you've read them and you loved them. Maybe you felt the same way I did. I don't know. DM me and let's chat about it. All right, friends, that is all for this week's episode of Book Club Fridays Romance Edition. I hope you found a few books to add to your TBR. And I hope there may be a few books that I have read, that you have read, and that we can chat about. So make sure to like, follow, subscribe, all the good stuff. And then come say hi on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Turn the Page Podcast because I'm dying to know. Have you read any of these books? Which ones were your favorites? Which ones fell flat? Tell me all the things. I could literally talk about books for hours. So I can't wait to hear from you. All right. Bye-bye.